Thank you, Scott, and good morning to everybody. I was telling someone a minute ago, this is my first time to be in this room. I know they had a big renovation to the Coliseum, and they added this facility as a new trademark, and actually, I think this is pretty neat. This is pretty good. But welcome and good morning to everybody. As Scott mentioned, this event was supposed to take place the first Thursday of the legislative session this year, back in January. Unfortunately, COVID and the Omicron variant of that virus had a different agenda, and we had to postpone it because the numbers in Mississippi were spiking at the time. But like that old saying goes, if at first you don't succeed, you try again. We continued to try, and here we are. So now we're having a Capitol Day minus the Capitol. COVID taught us a number of lessons. I'm not really certain we know what all those lessons are just now, but it taught us that we had some areas that we needed to shore up a little bit, with some problems that we need to rectify. But I think it also showed us, just how resilient we as Mississippians are. In many cases, we had to slow down, on some of the stuff we were doing, but we never did stop. And I think that's a great testament to the citizens of this state that we continued to push forward. And we were nimble enough to where in certain cases we had to make a left or a right-hand turn. We were able to do that and still accomplish the missions that we all had in front of us. So I think, as we move forward, the things that COVID has taught us, because it's not something we can run away from, it's not something we can wait until it passes, it's something we have to live with. And we have gotten to the point now, as you can see, sitting here, almost completely maskless, that we've just about come out on the other side and figured out a way how to live with this virus. And there may be some other things that will happen that we'll have to adjust as we go forward, but I think the main thing is we continue to move forward as a state, and we're going to be okay. In the past, Capitol Day has been conducted at the beginning of the legislative session. So that the members of the legislature could tell us, what they were going to work on. Well, given where we are now with where the session is, when the leaders come to us today, they're going to be able to tell us what has already been accomplished. They'll be able to tell us what they're currently working on, and then what they seek to achieve before the end of the session. So in some ways, I think it's probably a good thing that we're having it at the time that we are having it. And let me say, for all those elected officials here, we always appreciate you being here to share with us your priorities on how we move our state forward. MEC believes it's important for our business leaders and our elected officials to work together in partnership, because I think that is the way that we solidify issues in our state and we can move our state forward. So thank you again for being here. We at MEC, we are what we call the voice of business in our state, which means we help to identify and advocate for effective solutions to help move our state forward and improve economic competitiveness. This is why a few weeks ago, and Scott mentioned it, and I've got a copy of it right here in front of me, we rolled out our version of Securing Mississippi's Future Vision for Economic Growth. Now, this was important to us, because the data that we collected, that's inside this book, is data that we collected when we did our last year's MEC tour. Now, that tour was a little bit different from what we've done in the past. We listened more than we talked. We actually went to 18 different communities. We had 51 small group listening sessions, and we didn't tell people what we thought was important. Instead, what we did, we asked people what they thought was important, and the issues that they were wrestling with, and how they thought we could move our state forward. We took all that information and then we applied it to the strategic plan that MEC developed and adopted last June. We had 5 priorities that we had identified there, and those 5 priorities are: number 1, education, workforce development, and skills training. Number 2, talent retention and attraction. Those of you who know me, that's one of the things I'm very passionate about, trying to hold on to our young people in this state and keep them from going from Nashville and Dallas and Houston and Atlanta and all those places. Some kind of way we've got to make sure we can hold on to that talent here in Mississippi. Number 3 is infrastructure. And I'm sure you've heard a lot about infrastructure in the last couple of weeks, especially with the legislature being in session. Economic development and business climate was number 4, and then the 5th one was adequate and affordable health care. Now, developing this plan was a success. I think a true success will be in how we implement our goals and how we execute the plans. Those of you who know me, you know my background is in the military. In my career in the military, I've either participated or I've written hundreds of plans. The one thing I know about a plan is it's absolutely no good if it's not executed. That's where we have to do a lot of good information in here, but if we don't move on it, it does us absolutely no good. It's just some worthless pieces of paper. So we've got to move forward with that. Our commitment is to improve our workforce, provide opportunities to retain and attract talent, enhance job growth, and cultivate a strong economic environment. Now, like I say, the plan itself is good. Some very smart people put this plan together, and we've got to make sure that we go forward with it. Now, one of the main topics that you'll see in this plan is how do we develop workforce in our state. Anytime, you've heard it a number of times, what's the number one goal, when you have new businesses looking to come to your state, they ask you the question, do you have an adequate workforce? Can I recruit enough people to work at my facility to make it profitable? Well, in order to have a workforce, you first got to have population. That's where attracting and retaining population is so important, because the last census, we didn't do so well. But that population also has to be trained. That's where our schools, our colleges, universities, community colleges, skills training programs, that's where that comes in play. And then that population also has to be able and available to go to work, which means they've got to have adequate transportation, but then they also got to have adequate health care, because a healthy population is a good workforce population. So I encourage each of you, go out to mec.ms, read our plan, and see where you might fit in, because in order to execute this plan, it won't be executed by one person. It won't be executed by a small group of people. It's going to take the entire state to move forward to get the things accomplished that we've got outlined in this plan. And I will challenge you that there is something in this plan where you fit. And I just ask you to find your fit, find your niche, and let's get to work and see if we can't move Mississippi forward and secure our future. As I mentioned before, COVID taught us a lot of lessons. Again, I don't know what other lessons it may have that we're going to realize that we've been taught, but I got a feeling there's going to be a few. But I think it also gave us an opportunity to hit the reset button. So as we come out of this, on the other side of COVID-19, let's see if we can't refresh our state and see if we can't move it forward together, because it's going to take all of us to be able to do that. I thank you again for being here this morning.